living the divine life? Many of us are not, and there just might be a few things keeping us from this. Welcome to Living a Sacred Life with Dr. Raymond Anderson. In our program, you'll learn to use the tools that have been given to you to make changes that you need, and by doing so, come one step closer to living that divine life. Now, here is your host, Reverend Dr. Raymond Anderson.
Namaste and blessings. So, how is everyone feeling today? Notice I didn't ask you how you are today, because that answer never changes. So as far as I'm concerned, there was no reason to ask it. I already know how you are. Question is, do you? You are perfect. You are divine. You are love. That's how you are, and it's what you are. Embrace that. Feel the truth of that as we center ourselves with a breath and prepare to pray. The prayer of St. Francis of Assisi is our prayer for today. Take a breath. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen and amen. So before we begin our discussion today on our deepest fear, I have two brief announcements. First one, if you go to the main website for the Center for Living the Sacred, which is www.CLSPFI.org, and you go to that page, and you'll notice on the page there's a large picture. If you go below that, there are 5 scrolls. If you go through the scrolls, you'll find one that is the 7th Wave Network scroll for Living a Sacred Life. If you click on that, you'll come to the Center for Living the Sacred, 7th Wave, Living a Sacred Life webpage. If you go all the way to the bottom, you'll find an iTunes link, which takes you to iTunes, so you can download the iTunes, etc. If you go below that, you'll notice a starburst. In the starburst, there is a discount. If you click on the starburst, it will take you to a new page that describes an offer for you, our loyal 7th Wave, Voice America, Living a Sacred Life listeners, so that you can get some of the services that we offer at a discounted rate. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, etc., do not hesitate to get in touch with me, and we can explain, etc., 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 and set you up with something. Second announcement is, next week we will be having a guest, Dr. Sherry Rosenthal, life coach, Toltec master, author, and spiritual travel consultant, as she shares her wisdom with us on living a sacred life. So, today's all about that 4-letter F word that we do our best to avoid. Okay, wait a minute. What 4-letter F word are you thinking I'm talking about? I'm talking about F-E-A-R, fear. And the funny thing is that the culture in which we live, the consciousness in which many of us are immersed in, we love to be afraid. Now, I know that sounds like a very odd comment. However, if you take a moment and look at our culture, look at the things that we do, you'll see what I mean. For example, look at the popularity of horror movies, especially those slasher types that have a lot of violence and gore. Some people love to be afraid. What about reality TV shows where we watch people acting out their shadow selves for our entertainment? We love watching people suffer because it somehow makes us feel better? Well, what about the news media that seems to keep its ratings high by feeding our fears? It's interesting that if you count the number of articles per se or segments on the news, how many of them are really good news versus someone was robbed, someone was murdered, some terrorist plot was foiled, or something? Why do we subject ourselves to this kind of stuff? Because as a result of that, we fear terrorist attacks of all manner. We fear 2012 and the end of the world, the apocalypse. We fear being cheated on by our spouse or significant other. We fear that our children might be abducted. We fear that our schools might become places like Columbine. We fear growing older. We fear looking older. We fear becoming ill. And most of all, we fear death. Or is that the ultimate fear? A long time ago, well, not really that long ago, early 2000s, when I used to teach public speaking classes at Virginia Commonwealth University, students would often comment that the fear of public speaking ranked higher on a variety of polls than people's fear of death. And I'd often ask them, well, why do you think that is? If you believe that, what's the reason? And students would come back and typically say things like, well, people, they fear embarrassment. They fear being ridiculed. They fear not being accepted by the classmates. Okay, so if we take that, then what is that based on? The ego does love to keep us afraid. And that's precisely what's working when you're afraid of being embarrassed, afraid of being ridiculed, or afraid of not being accepted. The ego kicks in. It convinces us that it's far safer to let it dictate our lives rather than to allow spirit to step in. But what is it that the ego really fears? There's an often quoted passage by Marianne Williamson that sort of gives a little bit of light, or sheds a little bit of light to this. And she says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, handsome, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God within us. It is not just in some, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we consciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Now, many of us who are on the New Thought or interfaith or interspiritual or metaphysical spiritual path, whatever name you want to call it, more than likely you've heard that quote before or that passage before. However, there may be some of you who that was your first time. And if for any reason that was your first time, that's your first exposure, then I would encourage you to do an online search. Read that at your leisure repeatedly and allow the words to literally penetrate every cell of your being, because that's basically our first step in reducing the grasp that fear holds on our lives. It's as Eleanor Roosevelt said, we gain strength and courage and confidence by each experience in which we really stop to look fear in the face. We must do that which we think we cannot do. And Emerson reminds us, if we do the thing we fear, death of fear is certain. So, how do you do this? How do we face our fears, you may ask? Well, most certainly, it is not by force. It is not by willpower. It is not by going to the gym and building your muscles. It's by doing what you do. Let's take a moment. Suppose you just came home from a long drive and it's midnight and you walk into your house. Now, if you're the only one living there, chances are all the lights are off. Rather than stumbling around in the dark, what is the first thing you do? You turn the lights on. Fear is dissipated by bringing love to the situation. No amount of force, no amount of effort will ever cause darkness to leave a room. Darkness only leaves or dissipates when we bring light. Add love, and fear will fade. Now, let me clarify a bit, and I'm going to use some extreme examples, or what I call extreme examples, to help illustrate this idea, so bear with me. Suppose someone fears being homeless or unemployed. If that's their fear, then their actions and their thoughts, which are motivated based on fear, and despite whatever this person believes, the actions that they take based on fear will not reduce their fears, nor will it bring them out of the situation or bring them what it is that they seek, employment or a home. You cannot get a positive by focusing on the negative. You cannot bring light by focusing on the dark. Only by living, moving, and having our beingness in love can we demonstrate love-empowered solutions to a variety of experiences or situations on our spiritual journey. You know, when I was a student at Virginia Commonwealth University, and through a series of what I can now see, you know, and hindsight is perfect 20/20 vision, I can now see that these series of whatever were self-created dramas that were based on fear, that involved arguments, poor self-image, low self-esteem, jealousy, resentment, an eventual breakup, a move out, 2 weeks of my being homeless, and then several weeks of my sleeping on the floor of a friend's home, which, might I add, included the embarrassing shame of my opening the door as her partner was using the bathroom. Talk about an OMG moment. I mean, it doesn't get much more embarrassing than that. I'm sleeping on their floor, and I open the bathroom door while she's in there. Anyway, it wasn't until I was able to release the fear of being homeless, or release the fear of this, or release the fear of that, by being more grateful for what I had, by focusing on what I was grateful for versus what I potentially feared, I was able to switch my situation around. I was able to change the situation. And as appreciation, or as the appreciation of love flooded in, more available apartments started to show up. More available jobs started to show up. You know, I found a lot more in the area where I was looking because I shifted my attention than what I formerly or previously thought was not there. So by shifting my attention, focusing more on love, focusing more on gratitude, opportunity became available. Where I previously thought, based on fear, I previously thought there were no opportunities. I was focusing on the scarcity. I was focusing on the fear. By changing that, bringing gratitude and love, that all shifted. So it's that time for our first break. I would like to thank you for tuning in today. You are listening to Living a Sacred Life on Voice America, the Seventh Wave Network. Stay tuned.
Your online community for positive change. Seventh Wave Network.
Are you seeking spiritual guidance or spiritual instruction and insight? Do you want Reiki or a holistic life coach to assist you in manifesting the life you are meant to live? If the answer to either of those questions is yes, then take this as opportunity knocking at your door. Pick up the phone or email Reverend Dr. Ray Anderson today and make those necessary changes in your life. Say goodbye to the mediocre and hello to the extraordinary life. What are you waiting for? Chat with Reverend Dr. Ray today. Call 202-607-1573 or visit www.CLSPFI.org on the web.
Our society is spiraling out of control. Are you stressed out and concerned about the events occurring around you? Is there hope? Yes, there is. Tune in to Living in the End Times, featuring your host, Monita Dukia, who will help you understand and navigate these perilous times. Living in the End Times airs live Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern Time on 7th Wave.
There's a course offered on 7th Wave Network that you never saw offered in college. One that provides information on how to transform ancient wisdom teachings into everyday life. You'll learn how to create from your spirit and explore the world with all of your senses. Participation is encouraged. Enroll in Spirituality 101, the course you can't afford to miss, with your host, Reverend Norma. Class is in session every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 noon Pacific Time, in your favorite classroom, 7th Wave Network.
Awakened media for a transforming world. 7th Wave Network.
You are listening to Living a Sacred Life with Dr. Raymond Anderson. If you have a question or comment about today's program, please call 1-866-472-5795. Again, that's 1-866-472-5795. Or you can send an email to 7thwave@pfcls.org. Now, let's return to Living a Sacred Life.
Okay, so as I was saying, the more that I focused on the love and the gratitude, the more I found the situation shifted. And to illustrate, what I found was a perfect apartment that was dog-friendly, because at the time I had 2 dogs. The apartment was within my price range and was walking distance to both school and work. Now, none of that was available while focusing on fear. So adding love made it possible for Spirit to do what it does in me, as me, through me, and around me. It conspired to demonstrate precisely what I wanted, what I believed was already mine. Okay, so you want a second example from the library of my life, huh? Okay, let's go with my father's transition, which is what many people would refer to as his death, his passing, or his homegoing. So my father had Lou Gehrig's disease, or myotrophic lateral sclerosis, for the majority of my life. And though he was, according to the expert physicians, scheduled to live no more than 4 years from the date of his diagnosis, my father lived approximately 28 years. And according to his death certificate, he died due to aspiration as a consequence of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma on October 14th at 4:10 p.m. So for a great majority of my life, I lived in fear of losing my dad. And when he died, I felt grief. Clearly I felt grief, but it was a grief that I can't even explain or describe. It was a grief that I had never known before. Now, mind you, I had been to many, many, many funerals and viewings of family members and friends, etc. So I've been exposed to my fair share of the funeral experience. But my father's transition hit me in a way that I can't even begin to explain. And despite the feelings of grief, at the moment that I returned home, the fear was gone. You see, by that time, I had reached a place of understanding. I had reached a place of belief where I understood and I knew in my spirit that I could never lose my father. I could no more lose him as the sunbeam could lose the sun, or the wave could lose the ocean. My father's physical temple no longer served his purpose. And so he, my father being spirit, returned to the one spirit, which I too am a part of. So when I brought love to this experience, my entire understanding shifted. And though the tears continued and the grief continued, and to this day, my father transitioned in 2002, and to this day, this Friday is the anniversary of his transition. To this day, I still have moments where I reminisce and grieve his physical not being here any longer. But I know in spirit that he is still here. So just as bringing an algebraic equation to a problem shifts how you understand the problem, and thus your ability to solve the problem, if we think about what Einstein said, you cannot solve a problem at the level of consciousness that created the problem. You cannot solve fear while still in a consciousness of fear. This is why war will never be ended as long as we maintain a consciousness of us versus them. Only when we elevate to the understanding of oneness and love will the belief in war fade into antiquity. Is it possible? Yes. Clearly, Gandhi has demonstrated that it's possible to end war by shifting our consciousness. We fear because on some level we believe in the illusion rather than believing in the truth. Truth is real. And as the Course in Miracles reminds us, nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. The illusions do not exist. Therefore, they cannot threaten you. The fear of being separated from God is an illusion. You can never be separated from God. Only by listening to the ego does that separation seem real. It's like sitting at home watching any cable movie and you no longer want to watch the movie. What do? You either change the channel or you turn the TV off. You have the ability to shift your beliefs from the illusion to the truth at any time you desire. Think about it. As children, we believed in Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny, and many other whatever man-made symbols. Yet, as we grew up, we relinquished our belief in those things to then shift into a belief of lack, hatred, jealousy, separation, us versus them, and far more less empowered illusions. Is it time now to change the channel? Are you ready to embrace the truth of who and what you are? Are you ready to find out how great and how powerful you are? As Marianne said in the quote, we are powerful beyond measure. Why would that cause fear? Do we fear it because the ego convinces us of the possible or inevitable failure as we are toppled from the pedestal of power? That's an illusion. There is no pedestal. There's no pedestal that everyone's fighting for. Everyone has their own pedestal. Think about it. Do sunbeams battle to find out which sunbeam is going to be brighter than the other? No. All of them shine equally as bright. They are doing what they are doing because they're being what they are. Understand, on this journey, there is no failure. Failure is a man-made invention which, it controls the masses. It's a judgment that we place. Think about it this way. If we believe in failure, then we believe in success, us versus them. How do I want to say this? Okay, look at the story of anyone who we call a success. If you look at their story, look at how they became whatever it is that we call a success, you're going to find in their story what we call failure, because that's an indispensable part of their growth. If it's indispensable and it helps to make us grow, how can we label failure, quote unquote, failure as bad? It's part of growing. It's part of learning. Why judge it at all then? Every experience offers us an opportunity to evolve more into our true selves. Suppose failure didn't exist in the vocabulary, and can't didn't exist in the vocabulary, or impossible and mistake. None of those are a part of the vocabulary. How would we discuss those experiences that we now label as failures, mistakes, and impossibilities? If those words didn't exist, what would we talk about? I guess we'd only talk about what is possible. How many of today's modern luxuries would have been called impossible in the 80s or the 60s or the 40s? What is possible today, once you remove the judgments, what do you think is possible? What is there to fear if you know that you're spirit and cannot die? If you know your spirit and eternally at one with God, what is there to fear when you think that you can be separated from that? If it's not possible, what is there to fear? It's like there's a divine thread that runs through all of us. And it connects all of us through our soul contracts and through consciousness. And there are no accidents, there are no coincidences, there are no happenstances. There's only a divine symphony where each and every one of us is playing to the best of our ability as we choose to. And no matter what we do, beautiful music results. I mean, how do you feel when you're told you are brilliant? You are gorgeous, you are handsome, you are talented, you are fabulous. Do you feel empowered? Or do you feel yourself shrinking, wanting to not seem arrogant, or you don't want to seem prideful, or you don't want to seem stuck up? Do you understand that by not acknowledging your power, you deny who and what you are? And in a way, you deny the world your gifts. Superman. Imagine, okay, I don't know how many of you are Superman fans or, comic book fans, but here we are on the planet Krypton. Kal-El, who is Superman, is sent to the planet Earth. Now, suppose he crash lands on Earth and is told that he's different, but he's simply Clark Kent. And Superman, who has strength and speed and X-ray vision and heat vision and all this other stuff and can fly, he believes the illusion, he believes the lie, he believes the facade. He is only Clark Kent. He would be denying who he is as the son of Jor-El. And as Clark Kent, he would be living a lie. The world would never know Superman. The world would never be able to be gifted by his super abilities, by his being a superhero. That's what he was here for. That's what he was here to do. It's the same for each and every one of us. Are you denying yourself, your super self, to be ordinary? So we'll be right back with Living a Sacred Life. I'm Reverend Dr. Raymond Anderson. Stay tuned.
Listening on a higher dimension. Seventh Wave Network.
Goodbye, self-critical. Hello, self-thrilled. Can you define your talent in 6 words or less? Are you using your inner resource, intuition, to teach you how? Listening to Joyce Anderson of Conversations with Yourself will work your intuitive muscle to discover your divine talent. Each week, your host, Joyce Anderson, teaches practices to jumpstart your intuition as your GPS to becoming self-thrilled. From sports to business to music and food, talent is everywhere. Find yours. Joyce and her guests will share their how-to stories on being self-thrilled. Tune in to Conversations with Yourself, Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. Pacific Time on the 7th Wave Channel, and ignite your talent. Are you seeking spiritual guidance or spiritual instruction and insight? Do you want Reiki or a holistic life coach to assist you in manifesting the life you are meant to live? If the answer to either of those questions is yes, then take this as opportunity knocking at your door. Pick up the phone or email Reverend Dr. Ray Anderson today and make those necessary changes in your life. Say goodbye to the mediocre and hello to the extraordinary life. What are you waiting for? Chat with Reverend Dr. Ray today. Call 202-607-1573 or visit www.CLSPFI.org on the web.
Being Here with Ariel and Shia Kane is an ordinary person's guide to modern-day enlightenment. This show is an exciting exploration which opens the door to living in the moment. Don't miss Being Here. Tune in every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern with Ariel and Shia Kane right here on the 7th Wave Network.
Be extraordinary. 7th Wave Network.
You are listening to Living a Sacred Life with Dr. Raymond Anderson. If you have a question or comment about today's program, please call 1-866-472-5795. Again, that's 1-866-472-5795. Or you can send an email to seventhwave@pfcls.org. Now let's return to Living a Sacred Life.
So before the break, I was sort of making the analogy of you being a superhero, your super self, and what are you denying the world? So I ask, what are you denying the world because you're allowing your fears to keep you small? You're allowing your fears to keep you shielded, sheltered, and secure, safe in that tiny little comfort zone, tiny little box where you're okay to be small. Are you or is someone you know maybe the next Nobel Prize winner, but you're afraid? What about being a teacher of the year, but you're afraid? What about being the next Gandhi or being a Gandhi or a Gandhi-like or the Dalai Lama? But, well, what is my family going to think? What will my neighbors think? So you're afraid. Could you be someone who has a solution for world hunger? Or world peace. Maybe you have a cure for cancer or a cure for AIDS, but your fear of being different, your fear of stepping out on faith, your fear of making a difference in the world and knowing that people will look at you is holding you back. Are you denying your community? Are you denying your family the light that is you? Now, I know a few people who work at the Capitol in Washington, D.C., and several of them have commented that when they were working there and the Dalai Lama would do his yearly visit to the Capitol, each one of them who was actually there to experience it told me that when the Dalai Lama enters the building, actually when he arrives on the property, you can feel something in the air shift. You could have been mad prior to that, sad, upset, angry, frustrated, whatever, but something shifts and you feel, why was I mad? What was I angry about? What was I frustrated for? And you let it go. There's no longer a need to hold on to it because something in his presence, something about his presence elevates the consciousness of everyone around him. And fear dissipates. Anger dissipates. It leaves only that sense of peace and compassion and love that electrifies the air. That's all that's left. What kind of effect do you have on people when you enter a room? Are you the kind of person that walks into a room and people say, oh my God, did Ray just walk in here? Let's go out the back door. Or are you the kind of person that people, oh, look, here comes Tracy. Oh, look at her, look, and laugh? Are you the kind of person that people talk about when you enter a room because you're always negative? Are you the kind of person that you enter a room and people just don't want to be there anymore? Or are you the kind of person that you enter a room and the room lights up? People are glad to see you. And while there may be people there who will laugh, will mock, will ridicule, will dip out the back door, it's not because you bring negativity. It's because something in them cannot allow the positive light that you're bringing into the room. Some people just for fear, being comfortable. And when your presence so electrifies them and challenges them to step out of that, they have to leave. They have to put you down. But does that mean you should change? Does that mean you should stop being you? Does that mean you should stop your light to make them more comfortable? No. There's absolutely no reason to do that. There's absolutely no reason for you to deny who and what you are. I mean, remember, as we are liberated from our fears, our very presence automatically liberates others. It's not what you do. It's not what you say. Simply being you. Your very presence will help to liberate others. I think all of us should take a moment and vow to bring love to every experience. Every single experience. So suppose you're stuck in traffic. What do? Bring love. Suppose your bills are due. Bring love. Suppose the doctor says you're diagnosed with X, Y, and Z. Bring love. Someone you love transitioned. Bring love. Friends are jealous. Family not speaking. Got laid off. You're in physical pain or emotional pain. Bring love. The more we are able to bring love in any experience, the more we're going to be able to embrace the opportunity to be who and what we are in truth. In each now moment, bring as much love as you can to the present. You cannot regret the past or worry about the future if you're centered in the present. And this takes practice. Trust me, I know, it takes practice. Because almost everything in our modern day culture demands that we multitask. On any given day, our highways are filled with people driving to work while eating breakfast, while putting on makeup, while tying a tie, and checking phone messages or texts. All at the same time while you're driving 90 miles an hour down the street. Okay, I'm not quite sure what in your mind says that makes any kind of sense, but not only is it safer, it's more harmonious for you to take the time to center yourself. And when you're driving, drive. When you're eating, eat. When you're applying makeup, apply makeup. Don't try to do all these things while you're on the road. I mean, the simple act of getting up 10 minutes earlier or even 5 minutes earlier and taking that time to just center yourself, to meditate, to pray. The funny thing is you're going to notice that you'll actually have more time, if such a thing is even possible. It'll feel like you have more time because you're going to get stuff done rather than living your life in chaos, rather than living your life in fear, which actually reduces your effectiveness. It reduces your peacefulness. And when you reduce your effectiveness, you reduce your peacefulness, quote unquote, all hell breaks loose. And you don't get stuff done. And you're always like the dog running around chasing its tail, never getting anywhere. And even if it catches its tail, who's getting bit? The dog. So why chase your tail? Why not simply learn how to be? I love the fact that, we have this concept of getting out of your comfort zone or stepping out of your box. And I love that concept because, and I don't know exactly where I got this from, but someone once said when at an interview, they were talking about Uncle Walt, meaning Walt Disney. And someone asked, well, what would Uncle Walt say about, or feel about this whole comfort zone thing or getting out of your box? And the person being interviewed said, well, that's really simple, because Uncle Walt, being the kind of man that he was, he would have said, box. What box? That's a really powerful statement, because in effect, Uncle Walt is saying, I don't even see a box. That's how far out of it he was, that he couldn't even envision this box. There were no limitations for him. This is a man who has been bankrupt several times, living out of his office, eating a can of baked beans, who Hollywood laughed at because he came up with this concept of a full motion picture with cartoons, etc. Yet, look at the Walt Disney Empire. Look at what all Uncle Walt, through his vision, was able to create. Each and every one of us has that same ability when we step out of our own way, bring love to every situation. Because think about it. Do you not think that there were moments when Uncle Walt got nervous and said, I'm getting ready to lose everything? My money, my home. I have a wife and kids. What am I supposed to do? But he maintained his vision. He trusted in his instincts, his intuition, his divine discontent told him, keep going forward. Doesn't matter what people say. Doesn't matter that they believe in your vision. Doesn't matter that they're saying, you want to build a what? A theme park. What the hell is that? And you want to build it where? In swampland? Dude, have you lost your mind? It would have been really easy for Uncle Walt to say, well, you do know I should listen to them and find something else to do. But he didn't. He maintained and pushed forward through the fear. It's that old concept of, if you're going to feel the fear, feel it and do it anyway. Bring love to the situation, because as humans, there are times when you're going to still feel fear. But that doesn't mean what you're fearing is real. You go to a movie and you sit there and you watch The Exorcist and the girl turns her head around and you feel afraid, but it's a movie. It's not real. You can wake yourself up from that and shift. It's the exact same thing for everything in your life. Take a moment, bring love to the situation, be mindful, be present, and make that shift. So, after these brief yet informative announcements, we will be right back with Living a Sacred Life on Voice America.
Listening on a higher dimension. Seventh Wave Network.
There is a lot more going on in religion and government than what high-ranking officials are telling you. The Bible uncovers the truth, prophecies, and a world of opportunities. Get the answers you need when you tune into the program To the Stars and Beyond with your hosts Michael List and Adam Hong. We'll explore the religious and spiritual beliefs from ancient history to the prophecies that are shaping the world and current events of today. To the Stars and Beyond airs live every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern on Seventh Wave Network.
Yes, you can live a more positive and spiritual life. One step you can take each week is to tune in to What We're Thinking About with host Ken Ludwig. This program is designed to provide thought-provoking discussion after each week's show. Ken and his guests will challenge you to look at things in an entirely different way, to step outside the comfort zone and see the universe as it truly is. What We're Thinking About can be heard live every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America 7th Wave channel.
Are you seeking spiritual guidance or spiritual instruction and insight? Do you want Reiki or a holistic life coach to assist you in manifesting the life you are meant to live? If the answer to either of those questions is yes, then take this as opportunity knocking at your door. Pick up the phone or email Reverend Dr. Ray Anderson today and make those necessary changes in your life. Say goodbye to the mediocre and hello to the extraordinary life. What are you waiting for? Chat with Reverend Dr. Ray today. Call 202-607-1573 or visit www.CLSPFI.org on the web.
The new home for visionary positive change. Seventh Wave Network.
You are listening to Living a Sacred Life with Dr. Raymond Anderson. If you have a question or comment about today's program, please call 1-866-472-5795. Again, that's 1-866-472-5795. Or you can send an email to 7thwave@pfcls.org. Now, let's return to Living a Sacred Life.
Okay, so as we enter our final segment, I want to take a moment to throw out there something that my recently adopted Italian sister, Felicia, sent me in an email earlier today, which was a very beautiful reminder of, or beautiful thing that ties into to today's topic. And it says, a wise man once said, the only thing to fear is fear itself. Do not allow fear to reign in your consciousness. to choose to trust in the power and promises of God instead of the fear or the fear thoughts that you may have. Faith works, but you must apply it in your life if you want to see results. And today's positive thought, make friends with your fears, which reminds me, there was I don't remember what this movie was, but there was an old movie. I want to say it was something like Killer Clowns from Outer Space or something crazy. And somewhere there was a quote in the movie or at the beginning or something that said, you cannot escape your fears as they are a part of you. They know where you are hiding. That's deep. You can't get away from them. So that whole thing about willpower and muscling your way through and being a man or whatnot doesn't work. You have to make friends with them. It's a part of you. For some reason, you're feeling it. Make friends with it. The more you resist, it will persist. So make friends with your fears. Today's positive affirmation that she sent, I embrace my fears with love. I embrace my fears with love and release them into the light. So that's my suggestion for all of us today, to remember that no matter what the situation is, bring love to it. The old acronym that often comes up, that fear is false evidence or false experiences appearing, and that's the key word, appearing real. Just because something appears real doesn't make it so. How many times have you ran into someone, an old friend or someone on the street, and they appeared to be upset. They appeared to be angry. They appeared to be sad or whatever. And in fact, they weren't. Their mind was just somewhere else. But we perceived it based upon our own filter. We perceived it one way. And we may have gone and told somebody else and said, hey, Robin, Rainica was upset today. I think you might want to stay away from her. Well, that's spreading gossip. It's a rumor. It's not the truth. It may have appeared to be real, but it's not the truth. If I bring love to the situation, then I'm going to, 1, not tell Robin that. 2, not going to talk about Rainica. 3, I'm going to look at the entire situation from a perspective or hopefully a higher consciousness of understanding and say, there are a whole lot of things that could be going on with her. Rather than make the assumption, maybe I should go talk to her, offer my services to her. As the prayer of St. Francis said, to console rather than be consoled, and to understand rather than be understood. Maybe that's what I should do. Avail myself to them. Wash their feet. Provide my services, my help, my love, my light to them so that I'm real all the time. It appeared real when the doctor told my father transitioned. He outlived 3 or 4, I don't remember the exact number, 3 or 4 of the doctors who told him. Sorry, Charles. You're going to die in 2 to 4 years. Ching, he checked out. Sorry, Charles. It's almost like my father and I created this interesting game, which is what I tell people about why I have 10 degrees rather than just the stereotypical 1 or 2. Because one of the things that my father said was he wanted to live long enough to see me grow up to be a responsible, well-educated, happy, healthy, whole, grown man. Then he would be comfortable enough to leave. And I made it to high school, and he said, wow, I lived long enough to see you go to college. And that turned into the next thing, the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. My point being, it appeared real when the doctors told him that he was going to transition and die. But it wasn't. A lot of times situations come before us that appear real. If we bring love to it, if we bring light to it, then the fog of illusion dissipates and fades away, and we see what lies behind it. It's like that whole Wizard of Oz thing that I talked, and that's when the shift occurred. That's what each of us needs to do. Bring light and bring love to every situation that we encounter, no matter how big, how great, how terrifying, how terrible it may seem. The Old Testament story of David, young man, child, no armor, no sword, merely armed with a slingshot and a few polished rocks, takes down Goliath. Goliath representing gigantic fear, representing illusion, our belief in defeat, our belief in being overcome. And with three, if I'm not mistaken, three small polished rocks, David slew Goliath. And using a sword that he got from someone else, beheaded Goliath. And David eventually became the king. If each of us takes three small rocks, takes truth, takes light, and takes love, and applies it to every situation of our lives, then every Goliath that stands before us will fall. It has no choice to. Illusion can never stand against truth. That which appears real can never stand against truth. Only truth is eternal. Only love is eternal. Only light is eternal. So it's important that we decide what we're going to change. It's important that we ask ourselves, do I believe in my flaws, or do I believe in my perfection? Do I believe in the impossible, or do I believe in the possible? Do I believe in what I can do rather than what I can't do? Do I believe in fear, or do I believe in love? Ultimately, it's your choice. It comes down to what you choose to believe. It's always been up to you. It's always your choice what you believe. Your parents may have given you a certain set of beliefs. Your minister at church may have given you a certain set of beliefs. Your teachers give it. Your politicians give it. It comes to you from a whole lot of places. But it's like being at a huge buffet. You decide what goes on your plate. And you decide what goes into your mouth and into your body. Your beliefs are the exact same thing. They happen in the exact same way. So take a moment during the week and think about how can you shift from fear to love, from faith and belief, or shift to a place of faith and belief where you know what's possible. And even if you're not sure of it, you're willing to act as if, to take a chance and step forward in faith. Make that leap of faith. And if you need somebody to be a cheerleader, I'll go out and buy some pom-poms and stand on the side of the road and jump and kick and make letters if that's what you need. If it's going to help you step forward into the greatness that you truly are. So thank you for listening, and be blessed, knowing that you are loved and you are divine. It's in gratitude that I bless you. I look forward to chatting with you next week. I love you. Now go out and live a sacred life.
Thank you again for tuning in to Living a Sacred Life with Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. Please join us again next Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America 7th Wave channel. We'll see you next week.